Show.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Jay Calderon, Stand Clear Entertainment, and we're about to get into this week's boxing talk. We're going to do a recap over the fights that took place this past weekend. First, in the welterweight division of 147 pounds. It was WBO welterweight champion Jeff Horn going up against two-division world champion Terrence Bud Crawford, moving up in his third weight division, and it was a dominant performance by Bud Crawford. This fight started off very fast-paced with Terrence Crawford using the hand speed and just dominating throughout this fight, looking very sharp, very superior in his boxing skills against Jeff Horn. Horn looked the physically bigger man in there. He was definitely bigger, but he did not use that height and reach advantage that he had to try to really muscle in his way the way he did against Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao was a much smaller guy, and even though I believe Pacquiao won that fight, Jeff Horn was a lot tougher in that fight against Pacquiao than he was against Bud Crawford. Crawford was just looking really good in this fight, using that beautiful footwork to get in and out. He was pressing the attack, he was landing his jab, and also raking him to the body with some beautiful body shots and landing that check right hook. Each round, he was just dominating this fight throughout. And Jeff Horn, by the fourth round, looked confused. He looked like he didn't have any answers for the hand speed that Terrence Crawford was delivering. Crawford is a very good, smart fighter. He has some great defensive skills that was making Jeff Horn miss. Horn landed a few right hands down the middle, but there was no effect to Terrence Crawford. This fight was a one-sided affair. It looked like a mismatch in there. Fifth round, you saw the frustration on Jeff Horn's face. He looked tired. He was trying to wrestle Bud and tie him up, but Crawford wasn't having none of that. He was breaking out of that stronghold and pushing Jeff Horn back, the bigger man, to the ropes and just landing at will, shot after shot. It was just a target practice by the 8th round, landing beautiful counter shots with pinpoint accuracy. By the 9th round, Terrence Crawford dropped Jeff Horn to the canvas, and he was hurt. He got up, he had nothing left. Bud took it up another notch and went into beast mode and just started landing a barrage of punches, and the referee had saw enough. He stopped the fight. It was a stoppage victory in the 9th round for Terrence Crawford, becoming a 3-division world champion and the WBO welterweight champion. This was his introduction into the 147-pound weight division. Now he's amongst the big players in the division, like Errol Spence, who holds an IBF title, and also Keith Thurman, who holds the WBA welterweight title. And we also have a vacant title that's going to be up for grabs by the WBC when Danny Garcia takes on Sean Porter, and one of those two will become the next welterweight champion for the WBC. So we're going to have 4 top welterweight champions in the division, and this is a great time of boxing in a very glamorous division where we had guys like Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy the Hitman Hearns, Roberto Duran, all these guys fighting in the welterweight division in the 80s. The 90s, we had guys like Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, and Ike Cortez. These guys were great champions in the 1990s. And also we had the past decade where Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather were the 2 top guys in the welterweight division, amongst a lot of good fighters that were in the division as well, like Miguel Cotto and Paul Williams. So right now, the division is thriving. We got so many great stars in this weight class, and I can't wait for these guys to match up with each other. Now, I know Bob Arum is not going to make a fight right away for Terrence Crawford to fight a guy like Errol Spence, and that's the super fight that I told everyone that they were going to be talking about the minute these guys take care of business in their next fight. We have Errol Spence that's going to be defending his IBF title this weekend, June 16th, in his home state of Texas against his mandatory challenger, undefeated Carlos Ocampos. And this guy, we really don't know much about him. I believe it's going to be an easy task for a guy like Errol Spence, who's super talented. He's very big, he's strong, he has tremendous punching power and very good hand speed, and he should take care of this man quite easily and score a spectacular knockout. But the fight that everyone is going to be talking about the minute that fight is over is once again Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. When are these guys going to get into the ring and face one another? It's not going to happen this year. Guarantee it. You know, Al Heyman is not going to rush to put his superstar welterweight in with a guy like Terrence Crawford. Believe it or not, even though Errol Spence is the much bigger guy, he looks like the more physically strong fighter and a very hard-hitting puncher. I believe a guy like Terrence Crawford has more lethal weapons in his arsenal than a guy like Errol Spence. Terrence Crawford is a great fighter, a great, excellent ring IQ, great ring generalship. This guy has punching power, and he has great hand speed that goes along with superior defense. And I believe that a guy like Terence Crawford could really thrive in this division and become the #1 guy in the welterweight division. I already have him as pound for pound the best fighter in the world. He's right now competing with a guy like Vasily Lomachenko, which a lot of people rank him as a higher pound for pound fighter, but this guy is definitely in the running. These guys are going to be facing top-notch fighters in their respective weight classes. Lomachenko's in the lightweight division. Terence Crawford is in the welterweight division now. There was a possibility for these guys to fight about a year ago. Now, I don't think that possibility is going to happen. I think these guys will never fight each other, and that's too bad because we would love for them to settle the argument of who's pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Lomachenko has guys like Gervonta Tank Davis and also Mikey Garcia that's fighting in his weight division that he could have big fights with. But Terence Crawford has a much more bigger pool of fighters in the welterweight division that are more dangerous and that can catapult his name into superstardom. I believe Terence Crawford is a special type of fighter, and I believe that he will become one of the greats in boxing. I see him ending his career at 154 pounds, the junior middleweight division, and winning a title in that weight class, just like a guy like Pernell Whitaker did, and also Wilfredo Benitez did. He's not a big guy, not ready for those big junior middleweights like Charlo and Hurd. I think those guys are just way too big for Bud, but I think Bud could win a title against a lesser champion in the division and win a belt and become a 4-division world champion when it's all said and done. But this fight between Spence and Crawford is not going to take place until perhaps later on in 2019. I think Errol Spence will get another fight in before the year is out, and then he'll get the winner against another Al Haymon fighter between Porter and Garcia will come about early next year, 2019. And if Keith Thurman can actually get back into the ring and find at least 2 fights this year, then perhaps we could see Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence by next summer. But don't count Terence Crawford in getting any one of these guys. He's gonna get lined up by Bob Arum against a guy like Benavidez. That's a fight that has been building up. These guys have been beefing back and forth with each other. They're both promoted by Bob Arum, so that's a fight that most likely will happen next for Terence Crawford. It's an easy fight where he's going to be able to defend that title, and then they're going to be looking for Manny Pacquiao by the end of the year. If Pacquiao could get past Lucas Matisse, then Pacquiao will be the big money fight. You know, Pacquiao and Bob Arum are not really in the greatest of terms right now. I don't think Pacquiao's camp really wants to have a fight with Terence Crawford, but it will probably be the only big money fight for them to take under Bob Arum's umbrella. And that's the one that Terence Crawford is really calling out for because he knows the magnitude of that fight. Pacquiao has a legion of fans. It's a big high-profile fight, a big money fight, and why not? You know, I love Manny Pacquiao, and I think Terence Crawford would definitely beat him at this stage in his career. But it's a fight matchup that a lot of people will tune in to watch, and we will have to really wait until the big super fight between him and Errol Spence. And it's a shame that politics is going to once again play a part in this big super fight not happening, with Bob Arum and Al Haymon really avoiding each other to make that big fight happen, just the way they did with Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao for so many years. Let's hope it can happen much sooner, within the next year or so. But let's move on to the Showtime boxing card that took place Saturday night with Leo Santa Cruz taking on Abner Mares in a rematch. This was an exact replica of their first fight, a great action-packed fight, non-stop warfare between these two Mexican Americans, and Leo Santa Cruz defended that WBA featherweight title, once again repeating victory over Abner Mares in a sensational performance. The first couple of rounds we saw Abner Mares pressing the attack, looking very good, using that quick hand speed, going to the body and landing his shots in close range. But by the 4th or 5th round, we started to see the adjustments that Leo Santa Cruz made in that fight as he started to create distance and use his height and reach advantage against Abner Mares. The jab played a very big role in this fight for Leo Santa Cruz. He was landing that jab and landing that straight right hand at will, and it was a great performance by Leo Santa Cruz. I had him winning this fight 8 rounds to 4 in a very dominant performance. In the later rounds, we saw Abner Mares pressing the attack and landing some good body shots, doing some good body inside work. These guys went toe-to-toe to the very end, and you got to tip your hats off to both of these men. They gave such a great fight. It's definitely candidate for Fight of the Year, and I would love to see these guys do it again. Why not have a trilogy? They gave 2 great fights. let's see a third fight between these two later down the road. I think Leo Santa Cruz needs to unify the division, and Gary Russell Jr. is right there for him. He's the best in the division. Leo Santa Cruz, to me, is the second best in the division. Why not have these guys fight before the end of the year is over and have these guys unify the titles? And if Leo Santa Cruz is victorious, why not have a third fight with Abner Mares sometime next year? And even if a guy like Gary Russell is able to beat Leo Santa Cruz, that fight between Abner Mares and Leo Santa Cruz is still a great fight to have both of those guys fight down the road, and they'll still give you another spectacular, great performance. You know, this reminds me of the great Mexican rivalry between Mexican fighters like Israel Vasquez versus Rafael Marquez, and also Eric Morales versus Marco Antonio Barrera. Those were great Mexican rivalries, and this one right here is shaping up to be one of those classic rivalries that's going to go into the history books when it's all said and done. These guys are truly great fighters and future Hall of Famers. Now, moving over to the undercard on that fight was WBC junior middleweight champion Jermell Charlo taking on Austin Trout. This was a fight where Charlo was just definitely in control throughout this fight against an old ailing warrior. You know, we saw a game fighter in a guy like Austin Trout, but Trout is seeing better days behind him, and now it's the end of the road for Austin Trout. He got dropped twice with flash knockdowns in the 3rd and 9th round. Charlo was in control, but we didn't see that lion's roar in Jermell Charlo. He should have been able to take his man apart and knock this man out the way Jarrett Hurd did in his fight against Austin Trout. But nevertheless, he cruised to a 12th round decision. One of the judges scored it a draw. I don't know what that judge was watching. That was a total ridiculous scorecard handed in by that judge. I couldn't see Austin Trout winning no more than 2 rounds in this fight. I had it 10 rounds to 2 for Jermell Charlo. Where does he go from right now? He'll probably have another easy fight before the year is over against another meaningless opponent, because the fight that the fight fans truly want to see is against unified junior middleweight champion, and that's Jarrett Swift Hurd. And that fight is not going to take place in 2018. I don't see that fight taking place until early 2019, and Al Haymon is going to milk it the way he always does. Before a big fight he makes, he always lines them up with some easy opponents. Jarrett Hurd is looking for a fight against Kell Brook. You know, that's a good money fight, but that's a fight that he's going to beat a much smaller man in Kell Brook. Even though I'm a big Kell Brook fan, I think Jarrett Hurd wins that fight quite easily, but Al Haymon will most likely throw a guy like Tony Harrison at him, or perhaps even his mandatory challenger in Julian J. Rock Williams. That's a fight matchup, which is a pretty good matchup for Jarrett Hurd, and it's a fight that I wouldn't mind seeing. But like I said, I don't think this fight is going to take place between Hurd and Charlo until next year. But that's my final recap on the fights that took place this weekend. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in to this YouTube channel right here, Jay Calderon Boxing Talk. Please hit that little red subscribe button, put your email information in so you get all my notifications once I drop a new video. Hit that like button, hit that share button, drop comments. Also, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, and join the Facebook boxing group page, all under the same name, Jay Calderon Boxing Talk. I'm Jay Calderon, Stand Clear Entertainment. Thanks for your support, keep watching, and please subscribe.